He's got a primer black motorcycle cap stuck in his hair and a leather jacket over one arm, and he's got on boots, gray and dusty and heavy enough to kick a man half in two. Page 19. At the bottom. At first I see that he's making everybody over there feel uneasy with all his kidding and joking, and with the brassy way he hollers at that black boy who's still after him with a thermometer, and especially with that big wide open laugh of his. He goes on, and the bottom of page 19, nobody's sure if this barrel-chested man with the scar and the wild grin is play acting, if he's crazy enough to be just like he talks, or both, but they're all beginning to get a big kick out of going along with him. And eventually they say, and I can't remember what page it's on, but they say he smells like a man of the field and the outdoors, and for a brief moment they recognize that he represents what they could have been, or maybe even what they could be.
Page 101.
Thank you. So this idea that he is male and masculine makes him both a problem for Nurse Ratched, but Chief Bromden, fascinated with him. Harding, who's like, I'm better than you all the way along, is also fascinated with him. And here's the thing. It is really easy to, I don't think this is a word, but to glamorize McMurphy. Certainly the film does that. Does anyone recall why he's in the hospital? He was moved from prison, right? But what did he do to get into prison in the first place?
Was it like gambling or something?
No, he was not gambling. It's a good guess though, because he gambles all the time.
Yeah.
Please take a look at page 45.
Let's see, it was just like,
Please take a look at page 45. It's really easy to forget. I like to remind students of this periodically. McMurphy, Randall Patrick, committed by the state from the Pendleton Farm for correction, for diagnosis and possible treatment, 35 years old, never married, Distinguished Service Cross in Korea for leading an escape from a communist prison camp. We know he's a hard ass, right? That teaches us he's a hard ass. But he's also being described as like a man. I mean, I hate this phrase. When I was a senior in high school, I was taking a class on Hemingway and Fitzgerald, and we had to read like The Old Man of the Sea or The Sun Also Rises or something. And the teacher walks into the room and she's like, look, I returned your papers, and a bunch of you use the term a man's man to describe Hemingway and his characters. She's like, I just want you to know that you pulled that from Cliff Notes. I know you pulled that from Cliff Notes. The kid sitting next to me, Mark Washaw, his title was A Man's Man. Like, they were totally busted. But the phrase stuck with me. I, of course, never thought to use Cliff Notes because I was the kid who read the books. You know, here I am, right? But I think it's a great description, cliche though it is, of McMurphy. So he's Distinguished Service Cross in Korea, escaped from a communist prison camp. I mean, what a man compared to these emasculated, silent men in the ward. Dishonorable discharge afterward for insubordination, still masculine. Followed by a history of street brawls and barroom fights and a series of arrests, still masculine. For drunkenness, assault and battery, disturbing the peace, repeated gambling, and one arrest. Here's the arrest, for rape. Look at his response. Statutory, with a, whoa, couldn't make that stick. Girl wouldn't testify, with a child of 15. Said she was 17, Doc, and she was plenty willing. He's a rapist. Even in 1954, when the book comes out, he's disgusting. I'm sure she said she was 17. Doesn't make it any less disgusting that you're 35 years old and you're going after a 17-year-old. That's disgusting in almost every era, except maybe the Puritan times. So, and probably then the 17-year-old girls weren't all too keen on it. So, he is everything the men in the ward are looking to be. And because Bromden is telling us the story, this one little fact on page 45 gets forgotten. But he's disgusting. Here's another really great paper topic. Why is it that we, and I mean all of us who read this book, are captivated by Bromden despite the fact that he's disgusting? Why is it that we don't care that he's a statutory rapist? Why do we find him to be the champion for the men on the ward? Because Bromden finds him to be the champion. So even though Bromden makes no sense a third of the time, it's the truth. And we follow him. We trust this unbelievably unreliable narrator, which brings us back to that first topic. Okay, one last point. All the way on the right side of the board, a couple of key symbols. Characters' names, not much of a paper with that, but you could just talk about Bromden and include his name in the paper topic. The fog is the best symbol to write a paper on. The beginning of the novel, pages 9, pages 42, the fog comes in and Bromden backs off from whatever's going on. Or the fog comes in and he hides from the reality. Or he tries to hide in the fog. And he thinks, if I see the fog, the orderlies won't see me, or McMurphy won't see me, or Nurse Ratched won't see me. Does the fog actually exist? No, it does not. It is the fog of his brain, or it is this imagined protection. Have you ever spent time with little kids, and you're playing peekaboo with little kids? And they will they will do this, and they will say, you can't see me. It's like, well, no, actually, I can see you just fine, you just can't see me. They don't understand that. It's kind of like what the fog does for Bromden, except that he is using it as an escape. And there is a scene on page 39 where there's a lot of flashbacks in this novel. And that too would be a great paper, just looking at the flashbacks and how they change over the course of the book. He's in a factory and this girl's hitting on him and he's just gotten back from the war. He's like, take me away. She's like, take me away from all this big guy. And the cotton fluff is flying through the air, and the more nervous he gets about talking to the girl, the more and more cotton fluff is showing up. I'm sure there's some cotton fluff in the air, but it's just like the fog. And the reason I want you to pay attention to the fog is because at some point toward the end of the novel, the fog stops. And his storytelling becomes much more direct and precise, and his flashbacks become less fractured and less stream of consciousness and more deliberate. It's like we see him healing on a lot of levels through the novel. And Randall P. McMurphy might be nasty and he might be selfish in this book, but Bromden believes that his presence helps him get better. And so their relationship is also a fabulous paper topic. So you could pick a symbol, you could pick a big picture Ken Kesey issue, you can just look at Bromden as a narrator, you could look at the relationship between Nurse Ratched and McMurphy, you could look at sexism. I don't think looking at racism as a general concept will work, but if you want to say how Kesey uses racism to do something, then that would work. So I'd like to stop there. With only to say that the stuff toward the right side of the board where it says the hospital, the ward, the acute versus the chronics, some people have a choice about whether they're in there or not. The men who are in this ward are looking for a safe place. Nurse Ratched makes them bare their souls in ways that is cruel and negative. They're not getting healthier here, but they're afraid to leave. They are hiding. Most of the main characters have chosen to be there rather than being committed, okay? In fact, McMurphy, in getting committed, has less of a chance of leaving than all these other actually crazy people. Okay. The next time we meet on Thursday, I'm gonna talk about literally the next 50, 60, 70 pages. And I will stick with some of these topics. There's a couple really good story points. Do you have any questions for me about what I covered? Any paper topic ideas coming to mind? So you know what to look for while you're reading? Anything you need my help with? Make sure you reach out, all right? I sent status reports home to all of you last night, not because you're doing anything wrong at all.